The call came at 6:47 inches the morning. I remember because I was standing at the kitchen window, watching the fog lift off the hills outside Sacramento, holding my second cup of coffee. The phone buzzed against the counter, and I saw a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Mrs. Eleanor Whitfield? Speaking. This is Jennifer Martinez from the California Lottery Commission. I'm calling to inform you that you've won a substantial prize. Can you verify your ticket purchase from the Quick Stop on Folsom Boulevard, dated March 14th? My coffee cup trembled. I set it down carefully. I buy tickets there every week. What do you mean by substantial? There was a pause. Ma'am, you've won the Mega Millions jackpot. After taxes and the lump sum option, your total comes to $4.1 million. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. The fog outside seemed to freeze in place. Mrs. Whitfield, are you still there? I'm here, I whispered. I'm here. That was 14 months ago. 14 months of keeping the biggest secret of my 68 years on this earth. My name is Eleanor Whitfield. I was a nurse for 41 years at Mercy General Hospital before I retired. My husband, George, passed away 6 years ago from pancreatic cancer. We had one daughter, Patricia, who lives in Denver with her husband, Marcus, and their 2 kids. We also raised George's nephew, Kevin, after his parents died in a car accident when he was 12. He's 42 now, married to a woman named Deborah, and they live right here in Sacramento, about 20 minutes from my little house. When George died, I thought I knew who my family was. I thought I understood the bonds we'd built over decades of Sunday dinners and birthday parties and hospital visits and graduations. I was wrong. The first sign came 3 years ago, right after I turned 65. Kevin called me out of the blue, which was unusual because he normally only called on holidays. Aunt Eleanor, I've been thinking, he said. That house you're in is getting to be a lot for you to handle, isn't it? All that yard work, the maintenance. Deborah and I were talking, and we think maybe you should consider selling. The market's really hot right now. I looked around my living room, the chair where George used to read, the garden I'd tended for 30 years, the walls covered with photographs of a life well lived. I'm managing just fine, Kevin. Well, sure, but you're not getting any younger, and that house must be worth, what, $600,000? $7? You could move into a nice apartment, invest the rest. It just makes financial sense. Financial sense. He was already doing the math. I appreciate your concern, I said, keeping my voice steady. But this is my home. I'm not ready to leave it. He didn't call again for 4 months. Patricia was different, but not in a better way. She called more often, but the conversations were always the same. How expensive Denver was, how Marcus's company was downsizing, how the kids needed braces, needed tutoring, needed things she couldn't afford. I'm not asking for anything, Mom, she'd say, in a tone that was absolutely asking for something. I just wish things were easier. I wish Dad had left us more. George had left her $50,000. He'd left Kevin the same. It wasn't a fortune, but it wasn't nothing either. Both of them had spent it within 2 years. So when I won that lottery, when I sat in that office at the California Lottery Commission and signed papers and posed for photos that I asked them never to release, I made a decision. I would tell no one. Not Kevin, not Patricia, not my sister Betty in Phoenix, not my neighbors, not my bridge club. No one. I hired a financial advisor named Robert Chen, a quiet man with kind eyes who specialized in helping lottery winners manage their sudden wealth. He helped me set up trusts and accounts, helped me understand how to live off the interest without touching the principal. Most lottery winners go broke within 5 years, he told me. They tell everyone, and suddenly they're supporting entire extended families, funding business ventures that fail, giving money to charities they've never heard of. They become ATM machines for everyone they've ever met. That won't happen to me, I said. Because you're not going to tell anyone? Because I already know what my family would do with it. I continued living in my little house. I continued driving my 12-year-old Honda. I continued buying groceries at the same stores, getting my hair done at the same salon, attending the same church on Sundays. The only difference was that I stopped worrying. I stopped worrying about whether my Social Security would cover my medications. I stopped worrying about what would happen if the roof needed replacing. I stopped worrying about dying alone in a hospital with no one to advocate for me. I had options now, I had security. I had the kind of freedom that money can buy, the freedom from fear. But I also had something else. I had a test. Not intentionally, not at first. But as the months passed, I realized that my secret had become a mirror, reflecting back the true nature of the people in my life. Kevin called me last Christmas. Aunt Eleanor, I know it's been a while. Things have been crazy at work. But listen, Deborah and I were talking about your living situation again, and we really think, with you getting older, maybe it's time to have a serious conversation about your assets. My assets, not my health, not my happiness, my assets. I'm doing well, Kevin. How are you and Deborah? Fine, fine. But the housing market is insane right now. Your place could probably get $800,000, maybe more. And you're sitting on all that equity, not using it. While you could be, enjoying your golden years, I enjoy my golden years right here, in my home. Well, think about it. And if you need any help with finances or whatever, I'm good with numbers. I could look over your accounts, make sure you're not getting taken advantage of. Look over my accounts. The thought made me shiver. I have an accountant, I said. But thank you. Patricia wasn't much better. She visited last spring, stayed for 3 days, and spent most of that time pointing out everything wrong with my house. Mom, this kitchen hasn't been updated since the 90s. The bathrooms are a disaster. If you ever want to sell this place, you'll have to put in at least $50,000 worth of renovations. I'm not selling. I'm just saying. You're not being practical. You're sitting on all this value and living like this. She gestured around at my perfectly comfortable, perfectly adequate home. Like what, Patricia? Like you're still a retired nurse living on a pension. You don't have to scrimp and save anymore. Dad's life insurance, your savings, the equity in this house. You could actually live a little. I looked at my daughter, at the woman I had raised, and I felt something cold settle in my chest. I am living, I said. This is my life. This is what I chose. She left the next day, a day earlier than planned. The months passed. The calls grew less frequent. I started to notice a pattern. Kevin or Patricia would reach out when they needed something, disappear when they didn't. My birthday in July came and went with a text from Patricia and nothing at all from Kevin. And then, 3 weeks ago, everything changed. Kevin called on a Tuesday evening. His voice was different, softer, almost nervous. Aunt Eleanor, I know I haven't been great about staying in touch. I feel terrible about it. Things have just been, complicated. But Deborah and I were thinking, we'd really love to come see you. This Saturday, if you're free? I was so surprised I almost dropped the phone. This Saturday? Yeah, we could bring lunch, spend the afternoon. We've been talking a lot about family lately, about what really matters. And I realized I've been neglecting you. You raised me, Aunt Eleanor. You and Uncle George took me in when I had no one. I've been a terrible nephew, and I want to make it right. My heart wanted to believe him. It ached with the hope that maybe, finally, he was coming around. Maybe losing his uncle had made him realize that time was precious. Maybe he'd grown up. That would be lovely, Kevin, I said. I'd like that very much. Saturday arrived gray and drizzly, the kind of March day that can't decide if it's winter or spring. I cleaned the house, put out fresh flowers, made a coffee cake from my grandmother's recipe. I wanted so badly for this to be real. They arrived at noon, Kevin and Deborah, carrying bags of takeout from a Thai restaurant I'd never heard of. Aunt Eleanor! Kevin hugged me for the first time in years. You look great. The house looks great. Everything looks great. Deborah hugged me too, which was unusual. She'd always been cordial but distant, the kind of daughter-in-law who sends generic greeting cards and never remembers your birthday. It's so good to see you, Deborah said. We've missed you. We sat in the living room, eating pad thai and spring rolls, making small talk about the weather and the neighbors and Kevin's job at the insurance company. It was pleasant. Almost too pleasant. Like they were both performing a role they hadn't quite memorized. After lunch, Kevin suggested he take a look at the backyard. Uncle George always had the most amazing garden. I'd love to see what you've done with it. I'll clean up the dishes, Deborah offered. You two go ahead. Kevin and I walked through the drizzle to the back of the house. The garden was dormant now, but I could see the promise of spring in the buds on the rose bushes, the green shoots pushing up through the mulch. "Aunt Eleanor," Kevin said, his voice dropping. "I need to tell you something. I need to apologize." My heart clenched. "For what, Kevin?" "For being so absent. For only calling when I wanted something. Deborah and I have been going through some stuff, and it made me realize how wrong I've been. You're the only real mother I ever had. And I've treated you like, I don't know, like an obligation instead of a gift." Tears pricked my eyes. "Kevin, no, let me finish. I know I've asked about the house before, about your finances. That was wrong. I was being selfish. I was thinking about myself instead of you. And I'm sorry." He looked at me with those eyes that reminded me so much of his father, George's brother, who had died too young on a rainy highway in 1994. "I forgive you," I said, and in that moment, I meant it. We went back inside. Deborah had cleaned the kitchen spotless, and she'd even started a pot of tea. We sat in the living room, and the conversation flowed more easily now, the tension broken by Kevin's apology. "I need to use the bathroom," I said after a while. "You two make yourselves comfortable." I walked down the hall, past the bedroom, to the guest bathroom at the back of the house. I was washing my hands when I heard them. Their voices drifted through the thin walls, from the living room, clearer than they should have been. Deborah must have thought I was in the master bathroom at the front of the house, farther away. "Did you tell her?" Deborah's voice was sharp, urgent. "Not yet. I'm working up to it. I did the apology thing, like we planned. She totally bought it." My hands froze under the water. "Well, work up to it faster. We need that money, Kevin. The IRS deadline is in 3 weeks. I know. But I can't just ask her for $200,000 out of nowhere. I have to soften her up first." $200,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. What about the house? If she's not going to sell it, maybe she could take out a home equity loan. She's got to have at least $300,000 in equity sitting there. That's the backup plan. But honestly, Deb, I think there's more here than she's letting on. Did you see the new appliances in the kitchen? The refrigerator alone is like $5,000. I looked around the bathroom. The only thing I'd updated recently was the fridge, because the old one had died. I'd bought a nice one, a Samsung with a water dispenser, because for the first time in my life, I could afford to buy something nice without agonizing over the cost. "And she's been traveling," Kevin continued. "She went to Portland last month to visit her friend Betty. She never used to travel." "Maybe she's got a secret sugar daddy," Deborah laughed, a cruel sound. "Or a secret savings account. Either way, we need to find out. Because if she's sitting on money while we're drowning in tax debt..." "What did you even do, Kevin? How do you owe the IRS $200,000? "It doesn't matter what I did. What matters is that we're family, and family helps family. She owes us. She owes us." I turned off the water. My hands were shaking. "The thing is," Kevin continued, "if we can't get it from her, we might have to get creative. I've been looking into guardianship laws. If we could prove she's not mentally competent, we could take control of her finances, maybe sell the house whether she likes it or not. Guardianship." The word turned my blood to ice. "Kevin, that's extreme," Deborah said, but she didn't sound horrified. She sounded intrigued. "I'm not saying we jump to that, but it's good to have options. She's 68. She lives alone. Who's going to advocate for her? Patricia's in Denver. Her friends are all as old as she is. If we say she's forgetting things, confused, making bad financial decisions, who's going to contradict us?" I stared at my reflection in the mirror, a 68-year-old woman with silver hair and tired eyes. A woman who had raised this boy, loved this boy, taken him in when the world had thrown him away, and this was how he repaid me. I stood in that bathroom for a long time. 5 minutes, maybe 10. I focused on my breathing, on slowing my heart, on keeping the tears at bay. I couldn't let them see. I couldn't let them know I'd heard. When I finally opened the bathroom door, I had my face under control. I walked back into the living room, smiling, serene. "Sorry about that," I said. "Old bladder, you know how it is." Kevin and Deborah were sitting exactly where I'd left them, their faces arranged in expressions of innocent warmth. "No problem at all, Aunt Eleanor," Kevin said. "We were just saying how nice it is to be here. How peaceful. It is peaceful, I agreed. I love this house. I plan to die in this house. Was that a flicker in Kevin's eyes? A flash of calculation? Well, that's a ways off, he said. You've got plenty of good years left. I certainly hope so. We talked for another hour. Kevin never brought up money. He never asked about my finances. He was playing the long game, I realized, softening me up, as he'd said, making me trust him again so that when he finally asked for $200,000, I'd be too grateful for his renewed attention to say no. When they left, Kevin hugged me again, longer this time. I meant what I said, Aunt Eleanor. I'm going to do better. I'm going to be the nephew you deserve. Thank you, Kevin. That means so much. I closed the door behind them. I watched through the window as they got into their car and drove away. And then I sat down in George's old chair and cried. I cried for the boy I'd raised, the 12-year-old who'd shown up on my doorstep with a trash bag full of clothes and eyes full of fear. I cried for the years of birthday parties and homework help and driving lessons. I cried for the man he'd become, the man who saw me as nothing more than a source of funds. And then I dried my eyes and got to work. The next morning, I called Robert Chen. I need to make some changes to my estate plan, I said. What kind of changes? I want to make sure that if anything happens to me, if I'm ever declared incompetent or unable to manage my own affairs, no one in my family can touch my money without oversight from an independent trustee. There was a pause. Did something happen, Mrs. Whitfield? I told him everything. The conversation I'd overheard, the threat of guardianship, the calculation in Kevin's voice. When I finished, Robert let out a long breath. I'm so sorry. This is, unfortunately, more common than you'd think. Elder financial abuse, often by family members, but you're doing the right thing by protecting yourself. Over the next 2 weeks, Robert helped me create an ironclad estate plan, a revocable living trust with an independent corporate trustee, a durable power of attorney that could only be activated by a doctor's certification and that named Robert's firm as the agent, not any family member, a detailed letter of wishes explaining why I'd made these choices, to be opened upon my death. I also called my doctor and scheduled a comprehensive cognitive assessment just to have documentation of my mental competence. The results, she assured me with a smile, were excellent. You're sharper than most 50-year-olds I see, she said. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Kevin called again a week later. His voice was honey-sweet. Aunt Eleanor, I've been thinking about what you said, about wanting to stay in your house, and I totally respect that. But I was wondering, have you given any thought to your future care? Like, what happens if you need help someday? Deborah and I were talking, and we'd be happy to be your designated caregivers. We could even move in eventually, if it came to that. Help with the house, the yard, be there for you. Move in, take over, control my life and my money under the guise of caring for me. That's very thoughtful, Kevin, but I've already made arrangements for my future care. I've set up trusts and legal documents. Everything is taken care of. A beat of silence. Trusts? What do you mean? I mean, I've worked with professionals to ensure that my affairs are in order. No matter what happens to me, my assets are protected and my wishes will be carried out. That's great, Aunt Eleanor. Really forward-thinking, but his voice had changed. The honey was gone, replaced by something harder. Who did you work with? Maybe I could take a look, make sure everything is, in your best interest. It's already in my best interest, Kevin. That's why I hired professionals. Another silence. Longer this time. Okay. Well, if you ever need anything, you know we're here. I know. Thank you. He hung up without saying goodbye. 2 days later, Patricia called. This was unusual because Patricia rarely called twice in the same month. Mom, I just got off the phone with Kevin. He said you've been making changes to your estate plan? That's right. Without talking to us first? Why would I need to talk to you first? It's my estate. Because we're your family, Mom. Don't you think we should have some input into your decisions? No, I don't, Patricia sputtered. Mom, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this attitude is really hurtful. Kevin is worried about you. We're all worried about you. You're making major financial decisions without consulting anyone. You're being secretive. You're pushing away the people who love you. The people who love me, I repeated. Tell me, Patricia, when was the last time you asked about my health? My happiness? My life? I ask about your life all the time. You ask about my house. You ask about my savings. You ask about what your father left. You've never once asked me how I'm doing, how I'm coping with being alone, what I do with my days. Not once, Patricia. Not in 6 years. That's not fair. It's completely fair. And I've decided that I'm done pretending otherwise. I love you, Patricia. I'll always love you. But I'm not a bank account. I'm not a source of inheritance. I'm your mother. And if you can't treat me like your mother, then I don't know what else we have to say to each other. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but my heart felt lighter than it had in years. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, Kevin has called 3 more times. Each call has been shorter, more frustrated. He's tried guilt. He's tried anger. He's tried manipulation, telling me that George would be ashamed of how I'm treating his family. George would be ashamed of you, I told him. George loved me. He would never have wanted you to treat me like this. Patricia has stopped calling altogether. And last night, I made a decision. I sat down at my kitchen table with a fresh cup of coffee and a legal pad. I made a list of every person who had been kind to me over the years, every person who had showed up without expecting anything in return. Maria Gonzalez, my neighbor, who brought me soup when I had the flu last winter and refused to let me pay her back. James Thompson, my letter carrier, who always takes the time to chat and once waited with me for 2 hours when I locked myself out of my house. Rachel Kim, my hairdresser, who lost her husband to cancer the same year I lost George, and who has held my hand through so many grief-filled afternoons. The Mercy General Hospital Nursing Scholarship Fund, which helps young people pursue the career that gave my life so much meaning. The Sacramento Food Bank, where I used to volunteer on weekends. The animal shelter where I adopted my cat, Whiskers, the best companion an old woman could ask for. These are the people who will inherit my estate. Not Kevin and his schemes, not Patricia and her resentments, but the people who have actually been my family, in all the ways that matter. I've left Kevin and Patricia each $1, just so they can't contest the will by claiming I forgot them. Robert Chen says it's petty. He says it might create legal complications, but I think George would understand. I think he'd even approve. I still think about Kevin sometimes, about the boy he was, the man he could have been. I wonder if things would have been different if we'd had our own children, if he hadn't always felt like an obligation rather than a choice. But then I remember what he said in my living room, when he thought I couldn't hear. She owes us, and I know that whatever went wrong, it wasn't something I could have fixed. Some people just see the world that way. Everyone is a resource to be used. Every relationship is a transaction, and no amount of love can change that. I'm sitting in George's chair now, as I tell you this story. Whiskers is curled up on my lap, purring. The spring sun is coming through the windows, warming the photographs on the walls. $4.1 million, that's what I won. But the real prize wasn't the money. The real prize was the truth. The truth about Kevin. The truth about Patricia. The truth about the people who matter and the people who just want what you have. I'm 68 years old. I might have 20 more years, or I might have 2. But however much time I have left, I'm going to spend it on my own terms, in my own house, with the people who actually love me. Last week, I bought a plane ticket to Portland to visit Betty. Then I'm going to drive down the coast, something George and I always talked about doing but never did. And next month, I'm starting a small foundation to help nurses like me, nurses who spend their lives caring for others and often end up with nothing to show for it. Kevin called again yesterday. His voice was different this time, softer, almost scared. Aunt Eleanor, I don't know what's happening with us, but I don't like it. Can we please just talk? Can we please go back to how things were? How things were. When I was useful to him. When I was a potential source of funds, a house to be sold, an old woman to be managed. Kevin, I said, I love you. I'll always love the boy you were, but I can't be what you need me to be. I can't be your backup plan. What does that mean? It means I hope you find a way out of whatever trouble you're in. But it won't be through me. I hung up, and I didn't cry. I'm learning that love doesn't mean giving people what they want. Sometimes love means protecting yourself from the people who would take everything you have. Sometimes love means saying no. I still play the lottery, by the way. Every week, same numbers, same store. The girl behind the counter knows me by name now. She calls me Miss Eleanor, and she always asks about Whiskers. 2 weeks ago, she asked me if I'd ever won anything. I just smiled. Nothing worth mentioning, I said. But I was lying. I've won everything that matters. I've won my freedom. I've won my self-respect. I've won the knowledge that I can take care of myself, that I don't need anyone who doesn't want to be there. $4.1 million buys a lot of things, but the best thing it bought me was the truth, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. I watch the sunset now, oranges and pinks spreading across the Sacramento sky, and I think about the choices I've made, the family I've lost, the life I've found. I don't regret my silence. I don't regret my secret. Some stories don't have happy endings, but this one has something better. It has peace. And for a 68-year-old woman who spent her whole life taking care of everyone else, peace is enough. Peace is everything. If you're out there, if you're someone like me, someone who has given and given and given until there's nothing left, I want you to know something. It's okay to stop. It's okay to say no. It's okay to protect the life you've built, even from the people who are supposed to love you. Because at the end of the day, the only person who will always be there for you is you, and you deserve to be taken care of too. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched you, if it made you think about your own life and your own choices, then it was worth telling. Now, if you'll excuse me, Whiskers is demanding dinner, and there's a beautiful sunset I don't want to miss. Take care of yourselves. And remember, some secrets are worth keeping.